to America
for all eternity.
All eternity. All eternity. From sea to shining sea. Sea to shining sea. From sea to shining sea. Sea to shining sea. From sea to shining sea. Sea to shining sea.
It's been 10 years since the terrible events of September 11th, 2001 in New York City. The tragedy left thousands mourning loved ones and had a profound impact on the nation that lasts to this day.
There were a lot of great people that died that day.
But there's another untold 9/11 story. How 6,000 people escaped from the North Tower of the World Trade Center in less than 2 hours.
I should have died. This was it. I'm done.
An evacuation conducted not by policemen or firefighters, but by ordinary citizens helping each other.
Didn't matter whether what color, race, creed, it was just people helping people.
Among these everyday heroes, two men stand out.
They knew that their job was to go up, not to go down.
Together they were a team.
This is the story of how Frank DeMartini and Pablo Ortiz put their lives on the line to save others.
I owe my life to Frank and Pablo.
1 minute.
In New York City, September the 11th, 2001 brings a busy rush hour just like any other. Among the commuters driving into work is Frank DeMartini, accompanied by his wife Nicole.
On the morning of 9/11, we went to work by car, which was unusual, but we took it with us because we had to pick up some furniture that day. So we dropped off our kids at school and drove into work. I think I even had an argument with Frank about traffic because he was such a crazy driver.
Frank and Nicole live with their two children in the Fort Greene area of Brooklyn.
Frank certainly never thought of himself as being special in any way, and he certainly was a very ordinary person because he could also relate to everyone. He related to the guy that was polishing his shoes just as much as he could relate to his boss.
Frank works on the 88th floor of the World Trade Center's North Tower.
This is great.
As construction manager for the Port Authority, it's his job to help keep over 13 million square feet of office complex running smoothly.
I decided to go up to his office and have a cup of coffee with him before work and say hello to his staff. So we just were in his office basically and had a cup of coffee, discussed typical everyday life kind of things. And that's when the plane struck just above us.
At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 en route from Boston to LA tears into the North Tower between the 93rd and 99th floors. For the people on those floors and the ones above, there's no way out. But for the people on the 5 floors below the impact site, life hangs in the balance. They are in the critical zone, perilously close to the inferno, and furthest from the ground.
We just had a plane crash into Omaha on the World Trade Center.
Rescue services will never reach this level. Whether the people on these floors live or die will depend entirely on their own actions. The North Tower will fall in 102 minutes. On the 88th floor, 50 feet below the impact zone, there's confusion, but no panic.
Everybody okay, Jerry?
What the hell was that?
I don't know. Yeah. Everybody okay?
Frank and his 30 co-workers have no idea that the building has been hit by a passenger plane hijacked by terrorists.
Yeah. Everybody stick together.
We all thought that maybe there was an explosion right above us. We didn't really know what had happened.
There was no way for me to really think about a plane hitting the building. Things like that don't happen on a clear, sunny day.
Everybody's okay and nobody's hurt. Yeah?
The atmosphere is tense. But they're totally unprepared for what they discover out in the hallway. Standing alone by an elevator is a badly burned woman. She is Elaine Duke, a 49-year-old administrative assistant with the Port Authority. When the plane struck, it sent a wall of fire ripping down the elevator shafts, engulfing the entire area where Elaine was standing.
Her hair was still smoking, and she was just walking as if she was a zombie. Her clothes was completely blown off, and her glasses were blown off, so I was just totally in shock. She just looked like a totally different person.
It's then that a shocking realization hits home. Something very serious is happening.
It wasn't until I looked at her arms and the skin was just peeling right off of it that I realized what had happened. 1 minute.
Stay calm, everybody.
One man takes charge of the situation. Construction manager, Frank DiMartini.
Pablo, grab the radio set.
Frank just appeared. I'm not even sure where he came from, and seemed to immediately assess what needed to be done.
Everybody, stay calm. Jerry, we're going to get the plans and we're going to figure out what we're going to do.
I never saw Frank panicking. He was very, very alert. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Start moving people down.
Yeah. This was very typical of Frank. He always took charge as soon as something happened.
Okay, have you tried C?
Frank sort of eased everybody's fears. I think everyone had total trust in whatever he was telling us to do, we were going to do, because we knew that he would get us out safely. We just knew it.
Okay, I want everybody to move into this office now.
Frank gathers everyone together in one large office and tells them to wait.
Okay, everybody, just remain calm.
We all got together in Alan Moose's office. He was the director at the time of the World Trade Department. And we were corralling ourselves to, make sure everybody was okay and put our thoughts together, because I don't think anybody really thought straight in those first couple of moments.
We're on the 88th floor.
Frank uses the Port Authority's two-way radio system to alert his colleagues on the ground.
7-7. We got somebody here who needs medical attention immediately.
But the airways are clogged and in chaos.
What's your location?
The 88th floor.
Frank is attempting to manage the situation, but he still doesn't realize how much trouble they're in. The impact from the airplane has sent a massive shockwave through the building's core, destroying 2 of the 3 emergency stairwells, stairwell A and B. And on the 88th floor, the hallway leading to the 3rd exit, stairwell C, is blocked with debris.
We need to get a floor plan and see.
Frank, his wife Nicole, and his co-workers are trapped on the 88th floor. As construction manager, no one knows the building better than Frank. And he's determined to find a way out. But the people on the 88th floor are not alone. On the floors above, many more are also trapped, just below the raging inferno. Over the next 90 minutes, the lives of all these people will become intertwined forever. September 11th, 2001, 8:56 a.m. It's been 10 minutes since a passenger jet hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center. In 92 minutes, the North Tower will collapse. On the 88th floor, just 5 floors below the impact zone, 30 Port Authority workers are trapped. They still have no idea what's happened, and the route to the only viable emergency stairwell is blocked with debris. Now, they're depending on construction manager Frank DeMartini to find a way off the floor. Also in the office is Frank's wife, Nicole.
Frank was very stubborn. He never took a no for an answer. In a way, he was like a pit bull. Once he grabbed onto something, he just would not let go.
As fire rages through the offices above, toxic smoke starts to fill the air. The need for an exit is becoming ever more urgent. One of Frank's most trusted lieutenants, Building Inspector Pablo Ortiz, is the first to take action.
Pablo certainly helped everybody by making sure all the doors were closed and making sure that the smoke was not coming into our space. And I know for a fact, because I saw Pablo doing it, he went through the floor to make sure that nobody was by themselves.
Pablo's quick thinking is no surprise to Maureen, his ex-wife and mother of his 2 children.
Pablo was a perfectionist when it came to his work. He knew every doorway. He knew every elevator. When it came to work, he was right there. He was on top of it.
Almost 15 minutes has now passed since Flight 11 hit the building, and tension is steadily rising.
At that point, we were just all huddled together in our director's office, waiting.
I think that I was a little bit shocked, as we all were, I guess.
We all had questions. There were so many things we didn't understand. It was frightening.
To make matters worse, Administrative Assistant Elaine Duke has been badly burned and urgently needs medical attention. Frank DeMartini has been searching for a way off the floor. He's discovered that 2 of the emergency stairwells are completely blocked, but it appears that the 3rd one, stairwell C, might be passable. Frank returns to the office with the news.
Okay, everybody, I found a way out. I want you all to come out here, take this corridor down towards stairwell C, okay?
When Frank came back, He told us they found a way. We would have to climb over some debris and we would have to just follow him.
Nice and slow, no panic.
If he wasn't there, I think all of us would have just stayed in that office and just hoping that we would get some kind of a rescue.
Without his taking control and organizing our leaving the 88th floor, I don't think that many of us would have survived.
Filing towards the exit alongside Frank's 30 co-workers is his wife, Nicole. Nicole expects her husband to follow,
Yeah, we've got a large group coming down from the 88th floor. We've just evacuated the 88th.
but Frank hesitates.
Please take it nice and slow.
His character was such that he had a way of hyper-focusing on something, so he really probably didn't even know what was going on so much around him. He knew he had to save this person's life, let's say, and that's it. The last words we exchanged, he said, "I'll be right behind you."
But Frank doesn't follow. Instead, he decides to search the rest of the 88th floor to make sure that everyone has made it out. Building Inspector Pablo Ortiz volunteers to join him. On the ground, a massive rescue operation is already underway. The fire department has deployed 200 units, around half its entire force. But firefighters are facing an epic climb to reach those in trouble.
Everything you got to the World Trade Center now.
If the people on the upper floors have any chance of surviving, help will have to come from within. And things are about to get a lot more desperate.
My heart went way up into my throat, and I knew right there we had a problem.
8:59 a.m., September 11th, 2001. Toxic smoke from the blaze at the top of the North Tower of the World Trade Center has been spreading down through the building. The tower will fall in 89 minutes.
Anybody in here?
Frank DeMartini and Pablo Ortiz have already guided 30 people, including Frank's wife Nicole, into Stairwell C, their only escape route off the 88th floor.
I remember he told us where to go, what stairway we should take, and we all followed each other and basically made our way down.
Right down the hall here. Anybody in here?
But instead of joining their colleagues, Frank and Pablo stay behind to make sure that everyone has made it safely off the floor. The job takes time. Each floor is a maze of offices spread over 40,000 square feet.
Anybody in here?
After a thorough search, they determine that the floor is clear. But unknown to Frank and Pablo, just a few feet above them, on the 89th floor, dozens of people have yet to be evacuated. Among them is tax lawyer Rick Bryan.
The fire alarms were blaring intensely. 10 of us then debated whether or not to leave where we were, to leave our offices and make our way out of the World Trade Center, or wait for some official announcement. And I was of the opinion, well, let's just stay put and wait for someone to tell us what to do.
In World Trade Center fire drills, workers were taught that when a fire alarm sounded, they should remain in their offices and wait for further instructions over the building's PA system. unless there's a fire in the immediate vicinity. What Rick and his colleagues don't know is that the airplane's impact took out the PA system.
The smoke in our space started to build to an extent where it became apparent now that we could no longer wait for someone to tell us to get out. We actually had to leave.
They decide to take matters into their own hands and head to the emergency exit into Stairwell C.
I was leading the crew out, and they're all following me, and I have a feeling, hi-ho, down the stairs we go. I put my hand on the doorknob to the exit stairway, turned the knob, and put my shoulder to the door as I had done 1,000 times. And that door would not open. My heart went way up into my throat, and I knew right there we had a problem.
When the plane struck, the impact was so violent that it actually twisted the building, jamming the door to Stairwell C on the 89th floor. The North Tower is now only 87 minutes away from collapse. But Rick and his colleagues are not the only people trapped on the 89th floor. On the other side of the North Tower, the side where the plane struck, another group of workers is in serious trouble. Thomas Haddad worked on the 89th floor as a graphic designer.
If you could imagine, as quickly as turning a light on, the entire office basically collapsed. And I'm standing in the doorway, and I realized that of the 5 of us that were in that day, that we were all standing in a straight line. And that had any of us been 3 feet in either direction, right or left, probably would have died.
Dazed and in shock, Thomas and his colleagues stumble out of their burning office.
The 88th is now evacuated.
Meanwhile, Frank DeMartini and Pablo Ortiz, having cleared the 88th floor, are about to join their colleagues and Frank's wife Nicole for the long journey down to the ground level.
I was hoping that he was behind me. I did not really know for sure that he was behind me, but I was certainly hoping.
But then something grabs his attention. Someone is banging on a stairwell door, and it appears to be coming from above.
Can you hear that? Go get your gun, Mark.
Mac Hanna also worked for Frank on the 88th floor, and like Pablo, he is willing to stay behind and help.
The decision to go upstairs was 100% Frank's decision, because I personally told him, look, we can go upstairs. It's very dangerous for us to go upstairs. But he encouraged us and said, let's go.
This is construction manager.
As hundreds make their way down to safety, Frank decides to go in the opposite direction.
We gotta go upstairs and see who's up there.
We're going on to the upper floors now.
Yeah.
He was not an ordinary person in that sense. For him to make that choice to go up rather than going down, I think was just really part of his personality. I really do think that's the reason he went up. It was in him. He just had to do it.
On the 89th floor, the lives of Rick, Thomas, and over 20 other people hang in the balance. Smoke will soon overwhelm them. Only minutes remain till the North Tower will fall. Time is running out.
The tone that she had struck me as, we're not going to speak again, and you're going to die.
It's 9:02 a.m. 16 minutes since Flight 11 smashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. It will collapse in just 86 minutes. On the 89th floor, just 4 floors below the point of impact, 23 people are trapped, and the door to emergency stairwell C, their only escape route, is jammed shut. Rick Bryan and his colleagues have fled their smoke-filled workspace and gathered in the offices of law firm Drinker, Biddle, and Reith, where the air is clearer. All they can do now is sit tight and await rescue. Without TV or radio, they have no idea how serious the damage to the North Tower is. But the phones are still working.
The phones at the law firm were ringing off the hook. The receptionist was not at her station, and so I just sat down at her station and began answering the telephone.
Drinker and Reith, may I help you?
It was almost comical. I can recall thinking how semi-insane this scene was as the building is burning down.
Drinker and Reith, may I help you?
And one of the calls happened to be from a woman who identified herself as one of the partners in this law firm of Drinker, Biddle, and Reith. We had a conversation, and apparently she was aware of what was going on. And our parting words were along the lines of, okay, well, do the best you can. And we ended the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
But the tone that she had concerned me quite a bit, because it was a tone which struck me as, we're not going to speak again, and you're going to die.
One thing now is perfectly clear. If someone doesn't come to save them soon, Rick and his colleagues might not survive the hour. Little do they realize Frank, Pablo, and Mac are already heading their way. On the other side of the 89th floor, Thomas Haddad and his colleagues take refuge in the offices of a neighboring company.
Is everyone okay? Officer's on fire. Fire?
It's all right. You're safe now.
Injured in any way?
It's okay.
They're relieved to be out of harm's way. But soon they learn the truth, that like Rick and his co-workers, they too are trapped behind the jammed door to stairwell C. They are still unaware of the catastrophe unfolding around them.
All the power, everything worked still. And somebody went into an office, pulled out a radio, put it right out in the middle of the room.
Joining us now on the line is an eyewitness.
Thomas is hoping the radio will help calm people down. But what they hear is anything but reassuring.
All right, so we're hearing a couple of witnesses who said they saw a plane fly right into the building. Tom Kaminsky in Chopper 88.
The news that an airplane has flown directly into their tower is staggering.
It was actually very upsetting. And I think that is pretty much when we realized that, this is, serious.
We can see severe damage.
But there's even worse to come.
The impact point, I can tell you that whatever internal sprinkler system there is at the World Trade Center has certainly been activated.
9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 hits the South Tower, 17 minutes after the first plane struck.
There was a second plane that just blew up the other building. Okay, we're seeing, it looks like some kind of sick confetti parade. There is debris flying out of that South Tower.
We saw a burst of flames a moment ago.
I said, let's turn this off.
Okay, we're going to go back.
Now we know for certain, that Building 2 was struck, that this was, on purpose. This was an act of war.
While thousands more are suddenly caught up in the worst terrorist attack in American history, time is running out for those trapped below the impact zone in the blazing North Tower. Both towers will be reduced to rubble in just 83 minutes.
To recap, once again, about 8:45 or so, the first plane went in. We are still getting calls from eyewitnesses who are telling us whether they saw the first plane go in or 18 minutes later the second plane go in. And now we're getting word, of course, about the FBI investigating reports that there had been a plane hijacking before these crashes this morning.
That's all we know about a possible hijacking, not where any flight might have originated.
On the 89th floor of the North Tower, 23 people are trapped, including tax lawyer Rick Bryan and graphic designer Thomas Haddad. The door to emergency stairwell C, their only hope of escape, is jammed shut. And now the smoke from the inferno is spreading across the floor. Time is running out. But Port Authority workers from the floor below have heard their desperate attempts to escape.
It's here.
Frank DiMartini and Pablo Ortiz, now joined by Mac Hanna, climb the stairs to see if they can help. As the seconds tick away, they wrestle with the door, but it just won't budge.
Jam.
At one point, I just heard pounding on the other side of the door.
We're coming to get you. Hold on in there. There's someone there.
Frank has realized that there may be another way to open the door.
Have you got a crowbar? In the office. Okay, great. Good.
The wall around the door is not built of concrete or steel, but sheetrock. If the doors won't give, maybe the wall will.
Boom! A fist-sized opening opened in the wall. And I stuck my face up to the wall to see who was on the other side. And at that time, when I stuck my face forward, another fella stuck his face on the other side of that hole. And so we were actually face to face, and our noses were almost touching.
How you doing in there? You all right?
Yeah, all right. We'll be in there in a second, don't worry.
So, step back.
The 89th floor. Yeah. Good. Try down this side there, baby.
Breaking through the sheetrock frees the jammed door. They are finally able to begin the 1,000-foot descent to ground level.
15 to 20 people.
Thanks to Frank, Pablo, and Mac, another group of people have been given at least a chance of survival.
Going through the door, and this fellow whom I've since learned was Frank DiMartini. I just gave him a thanks. And he just nodded in you're welcome. And I just continued down the stairs. And that was the last I saw of the fella.
But instead of joining Rick and his colleagues, Frank and Pablo stayed behind to check the rest of the floor. Mac Hanna acted with distinction on 9/11. He helped an elderly man all the way down to the ground. But for him, Frank and Pablo are the real heroes.
They went out of the way to help others. He really unselfish. They never thought about themselves. So for me, Frank DeMartini and Paul Ortiz, definitely, they are heroes.
The fire at the top of the North Tower continues to spread, weakening the building's structural integrity. Meanwhile, on the other side of the 89th floor, graphic designer Thomas Haddad and his companions wait, desperate for help.
I left messages for my wife, knowing that she was in the gym. She was not at her desk. So I left 4 messages, and they progressively got more nervous.
I just wanted the phone to say,
I just wanted to talk to her, you know.
that I love you.
Things were starting to get emotional. People were crying, people were upset. And I guess that sort of moment of feeling alone, even though I was with, 10 people, was devastating. At that point, speaking for myself only, kind of gave up.
Through this door, here. Get through here.
I saw their faces, and I can see them clearly as I can see yours. That was, let's go. We're gonna get out. Basically, I owe my life to Frank and Pablo. They are my heroes. They are the reason that I can, continue to have a life of any kind. We followed the 2 gentlemen out to a stairwell door. I was the last one on 89. And the 2 gentlemen from the Port Authority were standing on the landing of the stairs. And everyone else from our group had already started down. And the 2 of them were contemplating following behind us. And one turned to the other and said, "No, let's go up. I think there's more people upstairs."
What's next?
It is as crazy as you can imagine, especially knowing that as we were leaving 89, there was no going back to 89. It was quickly all catching on fire.
In the face of fires and toxic smoke, Frank and Pablo choose to continue up the North Tower in search of more survivors. They are now just 30 feet below the impact zone, and they have no idea what awaits them.
We're covering terror at the World Trade Center.
2 planes have smashed into the towers minutes apart, the first coming about 8:50.
It's 9:11 a.m. on September 11th, 2001. In the North Tower, more than 50 people from the 88th and 89th floors are slowly making their way down the stairs. All of them owe their chance of survival to Frank DeMartini and Pablo Ortiz. It's 1,000 feet, over 2,000 exhausting steps to the ground, but no one is rushing.
Once we got to the stairs, we all felt as if we were safe. that the ordeal was over. Everyone was orderly and calm and truly concerned for each other's well-being.
No one imagines for a second that the building is facing total destruction. The further the people in the stairwells descend, the more tense the atmosphere becomes.
We were very, very closely packed. If one person broke, if one person panicked, then it would be a very dangerous situation. There might be mass panic and mass pandemonium, and there would be a lot of people hurt because there was no place to go.
The people of the 88th floor, the first group released by Frank and Pablo, have now been making their way down the stairs for 10 minutes. Among them is Frank's wife, Nicole, still hoping that her husband is close behind.
Frank was certainly not going to come down with me. He wanted to make sure everyone else was coming down first, and I knew that he would be the last person to come down. So yes, it was difficult.
But some members of the group are moving slower than others, including Frank's secretary, Judith Reese.
Judith had an asthma problem. So it was very difficult for her to breathe because of the smoke and just the condition itself. She was a little overweight, and with the asthma, it was very difficult for her to walk. She was very scared. Her face, you could see she was just in pain from the breathing and trying to walk and knowing that she was delaying us from getting downstairs.
Inspired, perhaps by Frank and Pablo's selfless heroism, some of her colleagues refused to leave Judith behind.
We just tried to keep it on it. Oh, no, we just take our time, we'll get out, just be the last one out.
People behaved in a manner of helping each other and looking out for the person next to you, whether you knew them or not. Help this person. Americans, as a general rule, shy away from forming physical contact with other people. In this situation, those rules went out the window, and in fact, people were quite ready to lend a helping hand and to put an arm around somebody else's shoulder because of the situation we were in.
Rick Bryan's group, the second released by Frank and Pablo, are also moving slowly, their progress held up by the sheer numbers of people flooding into the stairwells. There are no precise figures, but it's thought as many as 6,000 people were trying to evacuate the North Tower on 9/11.
The stairway was quite crowded. The stairway was narrow. There were two lines of people walking down the stairs. And at one point, the door opened, and people started filtering onto the landing and down the stairs. And when the door opened, I was there, and so I naturally held the door open. And I realized that the number of people coming out onto the stairway was far greater than I had anticipated. And so the question came to my mind as to, well, whether should I continue to hold the door here and be polite or make my way in? And as I'm considering this proposition, I look at the people who were in my file on the stairway, and every one of those people were looking right into my eyes and asking the same question. Are you going to hold the door open, or are you going to make your way down and alternate so we can all get down the stairs? I had to make a decision, and my decision at that point was to stay and hold the door open until the last person had left.
All the way down the stairs, similar log jams are occurring. Thomas Haddad and his co-workers, the third group freed by Frank and Pablo, are only 7 floors into their 89-floor descent when word comes back that the way ahead is blocked.
The people that were up at the front started coming back up the stairs. And I heard somebody say that it became impassable.
Unable to move forward, the group decides to cut across the 82nd floor, hoping that one of the other 2 stairwells might be passable at that level. But it's a decision they quickly regret.
The smoke and fire was intense. I became almost paralyzed with fear.
It's 9:12 a.m. On the 82nd floor of the North Tower, Thomas Haddad and his colleagues have decided to cut across the building in search of a clear stairwell. But they immediately run into trouble.
It was clear that this floor was far more devastated than the floor that we had come from. There were large pieces of the building throughout the floor. The smoke and the fire was intense. We had to go up and under and over various bits of the building, and smoke was so thick, and the strobe lights going on and off made it so disorienting. And with fire in the distance and close by, it was actually pretty frightening.
Disoriented by the thick smoke, Thomas makes a wrong turn and loses sight of his group.
I became almost paralyzed with fear.
But following Frank and Pablo's example, a new spirit of heroic selflessness is emerging among those they've saved. And just as Thomas is feeling as if he's lost for good, he sees his colleague Sabrina coming back through the smoke to rescue him.
Thomas, put your hand.
I guess that moment when I was separated from everyone was this feeling of desperation. Have you ever seen a child who's separated from their parents? And that's like probably the most pure fear that you can ever see in a person. And then when she grabbed a hold of my hand was, you know, fantastic. It feels like love. You would expect people to just be nicer to each other than they really are in their day-to-day lives. And I guess because we had all been through the ringer, there was a brotherhood or a kinship that had been shared by us all, where you sort of lost a bit of the self for the community.
Using the light of a cell phone to guide them through the smoke-filled gloom, the group eventually stumbles into another emergency stairwell. And after a frightening trek across the burning office space, the gamble is paid off. The stairway is passable.
Once we got to the second set of stairs, I felt as if we were going to be okay. This is over now. And all that is required of me is to go down these 82 flights of stairs.
Thousands are now making their way down the stairwells. The raging fires and billowing smoke mean that helicopters can't possibly land on the roof. And for the firefighters making their way up the building from the ground, progress is painfully slow. Each man is carrying 60 pounds of equipment and moving against the tide of evacuees.
Attention all units. By order of the citywide SOAR commander, all off-duty firefighters and all off-duty officers are hereby recalled. Repeat. By orders of the citywide...
Now more than ever, it's looking like the only hope for those on the upper floors is Frank and Pablo. But as the pair approach the impact zone, the smoke thickens, and there are fires all around them.
We got it under control?
In an effort to clear the exit area for any remaining survivors, they use stairwell fire hoses to douse the flames. Chris Egan worked on the 90th floor of the North Tower, 3 floors below the impact point. At first, Chris and his colleagues stayed put, following World Trade Center fire drill instructions. But as the smoke and flames spread, they realize they can wait no longer.
So I said, okay, obviously, this is a real bad thing, and we're not staying in the suite. We have to get out of here. So at that point, I grabbed a fire extinguisher, hoping that, you know, even if the smoke was thick in the hallway, we would at least be able to put out the fires to get to the stairwell. So we arrived in the stairway, and of course I'm filled with adrenaline because I have my fire extinguisher in one hand, and to the left, going up towards 91, there were gentlemen using the fire hose.
You're okay. Down the stairs.
And what I didn't realize was there was about an inch of water on the steps. So the minute I hit the first step, I went down a flight pretty much on my back.
Hold it there.
There was a gentleman basically standing where I had fallen who just told me, you know, just drop that stuff. Just forget that stuff and keep moving.
All the evidence indicates that the 2 men Chris encountered were Frank and Pablo. They've cleared the 88th and 89th floors and saved 53 people's lives. But Frank and Pablo still aren't ready to leave. Now they're just 3 floors below the impact zone. It's hot, dark, and it's getting very hard to breathe.
Hold on to each other.
Beating back the flames, Frank and Pablo clear the stairway up to the 91st floor and allow yet another group of 18 people to escape. Among them, electricians Mike McQuaid and Anthony Vangeli.
You could see the smoke. It was all black. It just started dropping.
And it was thick. Like to me, it reminded like cotton candy. It was like plastic burning, some kind of
like
smoke. Soot. When I see stuff on TV live, you know, that it bothers me, you know, knowing that I was in there, but we were you know, blocked from it. We didn't see any of it.
Tried to call my wife, and then can you give me a minute, please? Anyway, I called my wife. I told her I was trying to get out. We were actually lucky, you know, and we got lucky. That's all I could say. You know, God was looking out for us, you know, and we're still alive.
Hold on. Say again?
For almost 30 precious minutes, Frank and Pablo have ignored their own safety and put their lives on the line to save over 70 people.
We're on 91. It looks like it's blocked here.
What would compel 2 ordinary men with wives and families to risk everything in the face of so much uncertainty?
Frank was a very, very moral person, and he had a very strong sense of right and wrong. And yeah, he was almost like a policeman of the world. He felt that he had to control everything. Yes. I don't think he thought about, I have already done enough. Let me get out of here now. He had to complete the job. He wasn't finished. There was one more person up there, so he had to go up there and save his life. That just was what he had to do.
Pablo served in the Navy from 1970 to 1976. And I believe that the Vietnam War was the thing that really changed his life. You could just see how hurt he was, that he lost so many people and he couldn't help them.
Major fall.
There was no way in which he was going to let anybody around him get hurt this time. I'm not leaving them behind like I did in Vietnam.
I think it's blocked. Stairway C.
More than 1,300 people are still trapped on the 20th floors above. But not even Frank and Pablo can find a path through. The way ahead is blocked by debris, fire, and toxic smoke.
Come on, let's go! Let's go!
They are now on floor 91. No one above this point will survive. Finally, they start heading down. But it won't be long before they come across still more people, desperate for help.
The walls were blown open, the ceiling was ripped open. I was petrified. Boy, was I scared.
The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center were designed to be the tallest in the world, 110 stories high, virtual cities in the sky. What made them work was a new invention, the Sky Lobby.
The 78th floor of the World Trade Center was called the Sky Lobby, and it was the floor where the express elevators stopped, and now local elevators took people from 78 up through the higher floors of the World Trade Center. And because people were there waiting for their elevators, people would often end up actually taking in the view of New York. It was spectacular and almost impossible to ignore.
On 9/11, people evacuating the upper floors thought that reaching the Sky Lobby meant safety. From there, they hoped to take an express elevator to ground level and simply walk out of the building. As Rick Bryan and his colleagues approach the Sky Lobby, they think the worst is behind them. They are mistaken. The once glamorous Sky Lobby has turned into a vision of hell.
And the 78th floor now, from what I had been used to of a beautiful, spacious place, was now devastated. The walls were blown open. The ceiling was ripped open. Elevator doors were blown off. And it was pitch black.
Keep going, come on.
Blinded by the smoke, Rick becomes separated from his colleagues.
I was petrified. Boy, was I scared. By the grace of God, I happened to bump into a conga line. And normally, at an event, when people are doing this, they have their hands on the person's shoulder in front of them and at a respectable distance because you're not that close to the person in front of you. But here, I had my hands so tight on this fella's shoulders, I thought I was going to break his shoulders. That's how fearful people were of losing their way.
But getting lost becomes the least of Rick's worries, because the group's escape route goes straight past a lethal high-voltage cable.
That cable was whipping about in the air, sparking and fire and flames. We were also walking through a couple of inches of water. So my great fear was that this cable is going to strike the floor where everyone was walking in water and is going to kill dozens of people. And so I was certain that this is, again, how I'm going to die. And I was looking back over my shoulder, and that snake, that wire was still whipping through the air and never did hit the floor.
Beaten back from the 91st floor of the North Tower by smoke and flames, Port Authority workers Frank DiMartini and Pablo Ortiz are finally descending. But they're not taking the direct route. On the contrary, they're still trying to save lives, seemingly searching the building floor by floor.
Is there anyone here? Anyone here?
On 9/11, Lou Leshy was on the 86th floor of the North Tower, giving a careers seminar when the plane struck.
Everything is surreal. I mean, it was a Dali painting. I was sitting in that executive office. We were trying to figure out what the hell was going on. The smoke is beginning to come in from underneath the door. That's what worried us, because we have no place to go.
Overwhelmed by the deteriorating situation, Lou and his companions have little choice but to wait for help.
So we had no idea, no plan, except someone opened the door and we heard those marvelous words, "Are there any people in here?"
Is there anybody here? Hello? Over here. This way.
All right.
Okay, all right.
Guiding Lou and his group to the stairwell, Frank and Pablo saved 6 more people.
Only 6 of us. You could have passed us by and not known it. Nobody was yelling. And all I saw after that was waist down, because smoke was waist up. But they were officials, Port Authority officials. They had the guts. They knew that their job was to go up, not to go down. The fact that we were helping one another and people were helping one another gave us all a lift. It was later, people said, and they told me this, I was part of that. I helped people. They said it not to brag, but to be part of the whole picture.
They said it out of pride.
It was, there was, that place, I must admit, that day showed a lot.
With Lou and his colleagues evacuated, there are few people left who can be saved. But one man has been trapped in an elevator for 30 nightmarish minutes. For Building Inspector Tony Savas, time is running out.
Anybody out there?
It's 9:16 a.m. 72 minutes before the North Tower will fall. Workers are now streaming out of the World Trade Center. On the sky lobby of the North Tower, 78 floors above, a man named Tony Savas has been trapped in an elevator since the moment of impact. Hundreds of people have filed past him on their way out of the building. Many have tried to help. Among them, banker Keith Meerholz, who was on the sky lobby and just about to take an elevator up to the 100th floor when the plane struck.
I had actually stepped onto the elevator, realized it was 3/4 full, and said, I'll step off and wait for the next elevator to come. within seconds, the plane must have hit. There was smoke and stuff on the floor. You could hear screaming. It was chaos. Me and another gentleman heard banging on an elevator door.
Anybody out there? Can you hear me?
And the two of us then proceeded to try and pry open the doors. We were able to get the bottom half of it open about 3 inches or so. We could see Tony inside, but we were not able to pry open the remaining doors. And we tried for several minutes. So we just a few moments of speaking to him, saying that we can't get the doors open and we'll send someone else back to get you.
No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I kind of struggled with that a little bit afterwards, that I didn't try and do more and try just, you know, after probably 10 minutes on the 78th floor, I've just started to leave.
Next to try and help Tony Savas is Greg Trapp, a part-time security guard. On 9/11, he was stationed on the Sky Lobby.
So I'm on the floor and I'm directing people to use the stairwells. And then I hear this guy, he's in the elevator, he's calling out.
Anybody out there? Hello?
So I say, hey, there's someone stuck in the elevator. And we're trying to pry the door open. So as it opens up a little bit, you can see the guy inside. So we're talking and we're saying, okay, stay calm, because he's frantic now that he's stuck in the elevator. We were trying to figure out how we're going to get this open. It's not opening. As we're doing this, two guys come out.
It's Frank and Pablo. They've managed to make it down to the Sky Lobby. The pair immediately realize that it's their Port Authority colleague, Tony Savas.
Want my help to hold the door? Yeah. Max, come on. One more time.
Where others have tried and moved on, Frank and Pablo persist.
That's it. Okay.
It's coming. It's coming. He goes. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
That's it. Okay. That's it. Squeeze him out of there.
All right. Hey. Thanks, guys.
It should be a moment to celebrate. But with his architect's eye, Frank soon spots something else. Something extremely troubling. He immediately gets on the radio.
Be advised that the express elevators are in danger of collapse.
The message is picked up by Alan Reese. Alan Reese was Frank and Pablo's boss, the man in charge of the World Trade Center. Today, he's in charge of the rebuilding.
On the radio, there was a lot of panic in people's voices. There were people yelling for help. And then Frank broadcast a message on the elevator radio channel, we call Channel Zulu, that to staying clear of the elevators, that they may be falling and collapsing. And it didn't explain what, but he was upstairs and saw something.
Was Frank DeMartini the first person to think the unthinkable? That the towers were in danger of collapse. It's now 47 minutes since Frank and Pablo freed Thomas Haddad from the death trap of the 89th floor. It's been a long and exhausting descent. But finally, he's made it to the ground level and is about to exit the North Tower. Nothing could have prepared him for the scene outside.
We came out this little tiny door that led out into the plaza level. And there was flaming bits of debris throughout the entire plaza. And at this moment, time stood still for me. I could see piles, bits and pieces, chunks of indescribable. I couldn't even figure out what it was. walking down the street, you don't imagine that you're going to just see an arm. You're going to see a half of a torso laying in the street. So it didn't compute. It didn't make any sense to me. And I stopped walking. It was at that exact moment that we heard the cracking of the glass from Building 2 starting to fall. I thought the building was going to fall straight down on us, and I yelled, "Run!"
It's 9:59 a.m. Despite being the second to be hit, the South Tower is the first to fall. Inside the North Tower, Rick Bryan is still inching down the stairs.
We had been walking for so long. Boy, it just took forever. As I'm counting down the stairs, I'm on the 11th floor, and all of a sudden, a tremendous rumble. And simultaneously, this rush of black, debris-filled, hot smoke just barreled up the stairs and overwhelmed everyone.
I ran as fast as I could down the street. And it occurred to me that this is it. I'm gonna get hit. I was hit by the debris cloud, and it hit me like cement. Could not see at all. If you can imagine a sound that's so loud that it's quiet, that's what it was. There was so much sound that I couldn't even hear a thing. I figured that after 89 flights of stairs and fire, and this was it. I'm done. And I screamed as hard and as loud as I possibly could. I sat down on the ground, and I thought to myself, just let it happen. Just let it go. It's okay.
Back in the North Tower, a message is broadcast over the firefighters' radio system to evacuate the building. The highest floor any firefighter has reached is the 54th. For Frank and Pablo, last seen on the 78th floor, it's decision time: to stay or to go. Frank must have feared that the North Tower might also fall. But the question is, how long have they got? Thomas Haddad has made it out of the North Tower and is finally on the ground. But engulfed by the ash cloud from the fall of the South Tower, and separated from his colleagues, he's lost the will to survive. Then he remembers a conversation with his wife.
Her dad passed away when she was 15, and it devastated her and her family. And she said to me, this is just a few days after the anniversary of his passing, she said to me, "Whatever you do, don't leave me. Don't leave me young." And I promised to her, I said, you know, I won't. I'm not going to die young. And I was reminded of this conversation, and I decided to stand up. I said, you know what? I made a promise, and I can't do this. And I pulled my shirt up over my head. Couldn't see anyway. And tried to remember, okay, what did the street look like before I couldn't see it anymore? Okay, there's a sidewalk, and then there's a building. Maybe I can get into the building. And I decided to walk forward with my hands out, shirt over my head. I got up to the curb, and I walked smack right into the building. And I pushed, and I walked in. And I'm standing in the lobby of the building of about probably 1,000 people. And there's crying, and there's people who were all upset and screaming. And I started to cry. And the woman identified herself as a police officer, and she sat down and she said, "What's the matter?" And I said to her, they're dead. They're dead. We came down 89 flights of stairs, and they're dead. And she said, "It's okay. What you're experiencing is post-traumatic stress." And I looked up from my water bottle and I said, "Aren't I still in the trauma?"
Rick Bryan has been inside the stricken North Tower for a grueling 77 minutes. He is still 11 floors from ground level.
At some point after the South Tower fell and the stairway was filled with this smoke, for many, many minutes we were stuck there, not being able to move. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody saying anything. Occasionally, a firefighter's flashlight would pierce the light. And finally, we continued down from 11, and now continued quite rapidly from 11 through the lower floors. And I felt such a sense of relief finally getting down to the first floor and getting down to L. I stepped out onto the sidewalk, and, well, I could not imagine what might have caused the fire trucks to be crunched like toys, ambulances overturned and crushed, police cars overturned and crushed, and all manner of concrete and steel and debris and glass and ash everywhere. The scene reminded me of Hiroshima after the atomic bomb was dropped. That's what it looked like. I noticed a firefighter standing nearer the World Trade Center. I said to the firefighter, and I was stammered a bit, the words I just couldn't speak because of this scene I had just witnessed. And I said to the firefighter, "There's a body over here." And he looked at me, and I noticed that he was looking at me as if I had two heads. And he said to me, "Just keep going," or words to that effect. But his look had a tone to it so that I knew something was up. And I turned, and because of the look of the firefighter, I realized that there were bodies everywhere.
Almost all the people rescued by Frank and Pablo from the upper floor offices have now escaped. Only 2 remain. Judith Reese, Frank's secretary, is still struggling. Her asthma is making progress painfully slow. One of her colleagues from the 89th floor, Jeffrey Gertler, has refused to leave her side.
So Judith and I are making our way down the stairs. We are approximately around the 12th floor, and her blouse that she was wearing was wet with perspiration, the entire blouse. And all of a sudden, she panics. She says, "We're going to die. We're going to die. It's taking too long to get out of the building." I said, "Just because there's no one in the staircase doesn't mean that we're going to die." And then all of a sudden, 5 uniformed firemen came down from up above, and they saw Judith sitting on the steps, and they saw me talking to her, and they said, "We're going to carry her down." When I say to Judith, "Judith, I'm going to walk with you, so don't worry. We get down to street level, I'll be with you." This fireman who was in charge steps up close to me, and he says to me, "You don't understand. The building is going to collapse. And if you don't start down those stairs, I'm going to throw you down those stairs."
Nicole, Frank's wife, has also made it out of the World Trade Center and is now among the crowds making their way uptown.
I could not look back, actually. I could not look back. I heard people around me going, oh my God, look what happened. People turning around, people looking, and I just could not look. I just kept walking north. I just could not see.
Trade Center has just completely collapsed. We're looking outside our window.
It's just astonishing. People in the newsroom crying, hugging each other. What a scene today. I'm shaking. I mean, it's just horrifying.
2,752 people died in the attacks on the World Trade Center. Among them were Frank DeMartini and Pablo Ortiz. In the end, what happened to Frank and Pablo is a mystery. No remains were ever found.
I sort of knew that Frank did not make it out, but I did not want to believe it. But I had a feeling that he did not make it out at the time.
We weren't mourning him because we were in denial. We didn't believe that he was dead.
It must have been several weeks later when we found out, when we discovered what Frank had done. I was certainly surprised to find out how many people he had saved in that relatively short time. It's wonderful that he saved so many people's lives. But he couldn't save his life, and his life was important in my life.
We just feel so connected because they actually had the last moments of his life. And to me, I think they each have a part of him living in them. And so my kids lost their father, but we gained the family.
Frank and Pablo rescued 77 people on 9/11.
I can see their faces as if it was yesterday in my mind. The first time that I saw a photo of Frank, I was overwhelmed. Completely overwhelmed. And this is the man that is responsible for saving my life.
But some did not make it. The body of Tony Savas, the last man Frank and Pablo were known to have freed from the elevator on the 78th floor, was discovered in the ground floor lobby, just a few feet from safety. Frank's secretary, Judith Reese, also died when the tower collapsed.
And then Daddy told you, no, don't worry, it's not going to be scary, but look at your face. How many kids can say, my dad saved lives? He gave them something to be happy about. He gave them pride. And I'm just so glad and proud that he did it.
I felt proud of him, certainly. I felt very proud of him, that he did what he felt he had to do. And and miserable and angry at the same time.
But Frank and Pablo's influence that day wasn't confined to the people they physically freed from danger. The example they set inspired many among those they rescued to help others in turn. Mike and Anthony came to the aid of 6 men stuck in an elevator on the 50th floor. Patricia Cullen used her master keys to open doors and check floors as she descended. Abdel El Gendi helped this man, Sam Sharma, down the stairs. Ron Scott kept people calm by singing songs. And Doreen Smith and Jerry Gator stayed with Elaine Duke, the badly burned secretary from Frank's office, all the way to the ground. Elaine was released from the hospital after 4 months of treatment.
People on the outside seen the bad of it. We seen the good of it because people were helping people, no one was pushing. It brought out the worst things bring out the best of people, and that's what I think it did that day.
If the situation were to arise and it was my turn to give my life so that other people might live, I'm prepared to do so. My life was saved, and I'm prepared to give back.